Is Scuderia Ferrari ready to throw down the gauntlet to Red Bull and McLaren? The SF-24 that ran at Fiorano on last week's filming day has undergone a profound conceptual change compared to the car that contested the first 6 races of the 2024 Formula One Championship. Team principal Frederic Vasseur did not want to play ahead of time like McLaren did by introducing an aerodynamic package of updates on the MCL38 that allowed Lando Norris to win his first career GP. The French team principal respected the development programs that the staff led by Italian aerodynamicist Enrico Cardile had launched at the beginning of the current season. Ferrari therefore approaches the 7th round of the 2024 F1 season, the Imola Grand Prix, which will see the official debut of the SF-24 EVO. This is the first aggressive update to the red car, aiming to significantly improve performance. The package has already been tested at Fiorano, and we have closely observed the behavior of the Italian car. In terms of timing, there is nothing major to report. The 2 main drivers did not seek out time results. Instead, the work focused on data collection, which is currently being studied. The orientation of this red car, as we have pointed out several times in the last few days, does not derive from a mere copy of the Red Bull once the shapes of the RB20 were revealed. However, at the same time, the Maranello technicians and engineers cannot deny, despite what certain media outlets say, that the evolution of the SF-24 benefits from the clear market choices that brought engineers from Milton Keynes to the Ferrari racing department before Christmas, key figures that were capable of transferring to Ferrari some concepts conceived by the brilliant mind of British engineer Adrian Newey. There is nothing wrong with that, on the contrary. The significant difference is that the solutions introduced are not the result of a simple copy and paste. But there has been time to dedicate wind tunnel studies to transfer to a car born with different aerodynamic characteristics. Those ideas useful to mitigate the deficiencies of the red car. The 200 kilometers covered on the home track in Fiorano by Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz did not reveal any particular problems, confirming that the aerodynamic package would succeed without rejection. Now it remains to be seen if this substantial package of novelties will be worth 2 or 3/10 of a second per lap at the Enzo and Dino Ferrari circuit next weekend, to see if it will be enough to return to victory at the Imola circuit in front of the Tifosi, where the red car has not won since 2006 with Michael Schumacher. To validate the update and move from the subjective to the objective phase, as always in Formula One, the track will be necessary. 3 free practice sessions along the banks of the Santerno River will allow the Ferrari drivers, in collaboration with technicians and engineers, to seek the much-anticipated answers. The Imola weekend looks promising. The prancing horse should also present the new version of the floor, as the one seen on the home track last Friday only differed from the base specification in the attachments of the longitudinal fence. Therefore, it cannot be considered an update. The differences will be elsewhere, located at the entrance of the floor, underneath in the keel area, namely the Venturi channels, on the floor edge, and the cutting edge. Some modifications to the diffuser area are also possible. It's important to remember that although Ferrari has equipped the SF-24 EVO with Red Bull-style shark inlets, the floor of an F1 car remains the most important macro component within the current regulatory framework, as it can provide vertical thrust without generating drag. Other minor upgrades that can still make a difference concern the cockpit area. We refer to the vortex generators that enhance the outwash effect, aerodynamic appendages shaped like cobra in the upper area of the sidepods. At the rear, we noticed a small novelty concerning the rear wing, where the final shape of the second plane is more pointed and less rounded. This measure is inspired by an idea from Mercedes, always very active in this regard. Ferrari has modified the so-called wingtips with the aerodynamic purpose of gaining some downforce without increasing the car's drag. This is certainly useful considering the suboptimal end of straight speed of the red car. In Giorgio Piola's drawing for the motorsport website, the new parts observed at Fiorano are visible. The main ones are 8, but there are also minor ones, such as the extensions of the mirror support, that are yet to be discovered in detail. The most impactful aspect is certainly the design of the side pods. The radiator inlets no longer have the lower tray as an extension of the cooling system intake, but have adopted the upper visor, moving in the direction of Red Bull and McLaren. The goal? It is easily visible from Giorgio Piola's side drawing that shows a significant increase in airflow to the floor, thanks to a much more carved undercut. Additionally, the side pod offers an increased undercut and a sleeker line even without changing the position of the radiator packs. A refined work of aerodynamic cleaning has been done to reduce drag, and therefore with the hope of improving top speeds, considering that in slow corners, the SF-24 single-seater is already competitive with Red Bull. This year, the red car initially retained an idea by Diego Tondi introduced on the SF-23, the bypass duct, which allowed airflow to be drawn from below the radiator inlets to the upper part of the side pod. The vertical air intake has remained, but its use has changed. The duct has been converted, as on the RB20, to a cooling function, implying that in a second evolutionary step, the side pod inlet could be further reduced. Next to the halo, the S-duct air outlet has disappeared, which used to be a flow conveyor to accelerate extraction from the duct. Now a so-called cobra has appeared, an unprecedented flap that differently directs the flow threads towards the rear. The floor has also been completely redesigned. We don't know exactly how the Venturi channels have changed, but it is not difficult to see the significant variations affecting the floor edge. Midway along the side pod, the orientation of the flow deflectors has changed to push air beyond the rear wheel to make the low-pressure area more efficient. There are also new elements in this area. A blowing slot has reappeared, and further back, a double opening has appeared where the diffuser begins to rise after the bend. Even the engine cover has not been exempt from changes. The bazooka area seems larger, and there is a prominent hot air outlet, demonstrating a different cooling system aimed at bringing less air to the rear, with the intent of improving beam wing efficiency. The effect can be seen by looking at the rear wing, which can finally have a lower downforce configuration compared to what we have seen so far in the start of the 2024 Formula One Championship. The increase in downforce, combined with the reduction in drag, should allow Ferrari to correct the deficiencies in faster corners. However, we need to consider the specific area of the Ferrari SF-24 EVO we are analyzing. Regarding this part of the F1 car, it must be noted that the fluid entering the vertical intake has a very thick boundary layer. This refers to the portion of flow that comes into direct contact with the surface, in this case, the side of the cockpit. As the air mass brushes against the surface, it loses energy. The boundary layer thickens, and consequently, the cooling capacity of the intake is not optimal. The mass flow rate entering the car, therefore, is proportionally lower than the maximum possible amount for a given slot size. On the other hand, adding a vertical intake for radiator cooling means the horizontal slot's intake section can be slightly reduced, yielding useful aerodynamic effects. Although it is not guaranteed that the air will reach the radiators, based on the information gathered, we know that the internal modifications are minimal. The internal components layouts have only been slightly adjusted to fit the new solution. Therefore, the vertical duct might cool secondary components. The Imola circuit is certainly not the most suitable track to showcase certain features, so in Maranello, they remain very cautious. There is great attention on the red car, and there is fear of disappointing the Ferrari fans. Everything will depend on how much the technicians can extract from the new aerodynamic package. It is not certain that everything will work perfectly from the start, and it may require some fine-tuning. Fortunately, there will be no sprint race in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix weekend, but 3 free practice sessions that will help Ferrari find a good setup for the Imola race and also thoroughly evaluate the first major update for the SF-24 single-seater.